So let's talk about challenging times, real struggle, hardship that we all inevitably have to go through at some point. Speaking to this guy the other day on the phone, it was a business related call, and he just started telling me basically how awful his life was at the moment. And he was saying that he was currently getting evicted from his property that he was living at due to like freak circumstances. He found out a month earlier that his fiance, who he'd been with for 10 years, had been cheating on him for the previous 5 years. And so he's had to break up with her. But as a consequence, like that's sort of some of the household income that has basically just left his side now. So he's struggling to find a new property with his income that he's on, because did I mention as well that his business is currently failing, so it's really not producing any income. His car was breaking down, so he was like, I don't even know if I can go and try and find a new job, because I don't want to travel long distances in my car, and like when it comes due to basically, do the repairs and that, I can't afford them because we've not got any income. I'm struggling, and he was looking at basically homelessness from a situation which had changed just over the last 2 months, where everything seemed to be going pretty well, and it resonated with me because I've had a similar situation like that before. When the chips are down, they're really down. When it rains, it really pours down, right? And I said to him, I was like, man, you must like a challenge. And he was like, what? And I was like, you must like a challenge, right? Because this is a challenging set of circumstances. And he was like, thanks, man. He was like, nobody's, like some of my friends who I've spoken to, they've all kind of been like, oh, blah, blah, blah. But no one's ever really kind of built him up. And I just thought it's very interesting, like how you view the world. And sometimes you are given like a repeat hand of cards, which you just cannot really play. Like it's a poor hand of cards, and you have to do the best with what you've got. And at some point in everyone's life, we're going to go through several circumstances when the chips are really, really down. And it's important that you kind of try and step up to the challenge, because what else do you really have, right? What else is the alternative, right? You can't just give up. It's not a possibility. So you have to step up to the challenge. And when you step up to the challenge, you have to be strong when you do it, because if you aren't strong, you're going to crumble. At least have the appearance that you're strong. So in weak circumstances, you should appear that you're strong. Remember what the Chinese general Sun Tzu said, which is make sure you appear strong when you are weak. And that is really the only defense that you're going to have if the chips are down. And sometimes, you just have to be in survival mode, and you just have to be getting yourself back on your feet and doing whatever's necessary, and knowing that life is actually long. It's not short at all, it's long. And we all go through the periods of dark years where things just aren't working out very well for us, right? And usually with that like sort of motivation, you can try and push yourself a bit further. I remember like working at this job once, and I really I actually got sent to this place on a promotion. And the place I was working, like I did not get on with the boss at all. I thought she was a friggin' idiot. I thought she was disrespectful to all the staff. I thought like she didn't know what she was doing. And she as well hated me. I don't know what it was, we just clashed with personalities. And I remember that I really needed the money, and I didn't have, and I could just feel this pressure on me that she was looking for any reason necessary to get rid of me. So I was trying to do everything by the book, and it was just an awful situation, because I knew that like if I lost that job, it would have probably took me a while to find a different job. I didn't have any savings or anything in my bank. I was kind of living a little bit on the breadline, so I knew that immediately I'd lose like the place that I was renting from, because I wouldn't have been able to afford to keep it. And it was just a terrible situation. Earlier, like a month earlier from that, I had to kick out a guy who started renting the property with me. He was like actually a friend, started renting the property with me. But it turned out that like, I don't know what his plan was, but he didn't have any basic plan of paying for his half of, renting a property. So essentially, I was being the nice guy, and I was like, yeah, no worries. If you can't come up with a deposit, like, I know you'll pay me back. You're my friend, so I'll pay it for you. And then, so that drained my savings. And then, like, I covered the first month of rent. And by the time it got to the end of the first month, I was like, man, you're making all these excuses. So I had to kick him out because essentially he couldn't come up with any of the money. And then I had this work situation as well where I was like, oh, it won't end. And sometimes it feels like it just won't end. But you must rise to the challenge, and you must rise to the challenge because the people who rise to the challenge, it ends up building the character, which then helps you, later on in life, right? So the resilience, the determination, the willpower, these things, you aren't born with these things, they develop over time. And to have these develop, you need to go through the periods of hardship. You need to be truly afraid. I see so many people on YouTube at the moment, talking about, I know some of the big influencer, or some of the big business people who are in your face all the time on social media. I know some of their backstories, and some of these people, they did grow up with money, although they'll never admit it. But when they're trying to kind of put this idea across that like they've went through real financial struggle in the past, I know like it's kind of a bit BS. But until you've actually been in a situation where you feel like, how am I going to feed myself this month? How am I going to keep this roof over my head? And you genuinely feel it. That is a way to put hair in chest, honestly. That is a way that will build that resilience muscle later on in life. Because imagine, you're 18, you're fresh out of, I don't know, college or something. And then you get immediately given the hardships that you would typically face at 35, 40, 45, 50, you wouldn't be able to cope with it. You'd be completely overwhelmed because it builds up throughout life, right? So you need these opportunities. Look at them as opportunities. Look at them as challenges. Look at things as a chessboard. Like, how can I overcome this? Because I know I'm leveling up my character, I'm leveling up my skills, I'm leveling up my, my beliefs that serve me in this period as well. And as long as you don't slip into the pit of feeling like, you know what, I just feel so overwhelmed, I'm just going to stop working, because that's a real problem as well. Like, you're just going to stop doing whatever you're doing. If you don't know what to do, you got to do something, right? It's the only way. Generally, your circumstances aren't going to change on their own. It's going to have to be action from you. So I just wanted to speak about this today because I just think it's so important, particularly as we're going into a time where, in my life in particular, and in your lives as well, we're going to go through some real hardship soon. It's hit some of my friends' businesses. It's hit some of my business in certain ways as well. Not as bad as some other people, but it's hit a lot of people. And you've really got to step up to the challenge here and not just think, what, this is not working out well, I'm gonna just kind of give up. You got to be thinking, hey, how can I push myself here? How can I embrace this challenge? How can I, defeat this enemy, right? How can I go after it? How can I, wage war like a commander and come out on top here? And so that's really why I wanted to do the video. It's a little bit off topic from what I usually talk about, to be honest with you, but I think it's important that we build these things. And I've always got my door open to you guys, any of my audience as well. If ever you want just a little chit chat about some things or whatever, drop me a message. Hopefully this message helps you today. Remember that you have ultimately got all the tools that can help your situation. Whether you haven't developed them yet, and they will develop through time, you just have to know that you shouldn't ever think about giving up, because it's not an option. And you just got to think that I've got to rise to this. I've got to take this challenge. I've got to take this in my stride. I've got to do what I can, and think outside the box. And it challenges you, it builds you up, and it makes, gives you a better character as well. So hope you enjoyed this video. Take care. See you in the next one.